ever since I saw Avengers Endgame in the cinema, I've thought Black Widow was alive. I've tweeted about this theory before, but I figured it would probably be a good idea to get this on video before a solo movie maybe confirms or denies my suspicions. Put simply, I think when Captain America returned the Soul Stone, she was resurrected. What's my evidence? Well, when Gamora was thrown down the cliff, there's what appears to be blood at the bottom, meaning people have been thrown down before Gamora. Which makes sense, the stone's location wasn't common knowledge, but it wasn't unknown.
The stone is on Vormir.
So, with the blood there, that means the sacrifices have either rotted away, thanks to weird microbes and stuff, that apparently leave blood, or they were resurrected when the stone was returned. And in Endgame, the Red Skull told Nat and Clint this.
In order to take the stone, you must lose that which you love. An everlasting exchange.
This could mean two things as far as I can tell. One, that the exchange is everlasting, the stone can't be returned, which is clearly not the case because Cap returns it. Or two, that the exchange is everlasting because you can't ever have both. That if you return it, you get your person back.
A soul for a soul.
And between Cap returning the stones and the blood on the ground, I think number two is obviously the case. And for a side tangent to my Odin video, maybe he threw Frigga down there, and that was the start of his heel-face turn. He began to realise what he was and moved towards making amends. So, why couldn't Hulk bring Black Widow back when he snapped? Partially because they were lasting exchange, but also because Cap put the stone back in 2014. So she is alive, in an alternate reality, chilling somewhere in space until she's needed for a fandemonium-inducing post-credits sequence. The timeline she's in isn't going to be destroyed by Cap putting the stones back. Thanos and Nebula are gone. That's a full-on parallel universe now. Arguably a better one because no Thanos. Anyway, that was kinda short and uncontroversial, so now I'm going to spend the rest of the time explaining how Nat and Clint going to Vormir was no accident, and who was involved. Out of the 9 people involved in the time heist, the 2 sent to Vormir happened to be the 2 with the closest emotional connection. That is very unlikely. They were also the 2 most physically useless members of the team. Keeping how Nebula described Vormir in mind,
Thanos found the Soul Stone on Vormir.
What is Vormir?
A dominion of death. At the very center of celestial existence.
that is downright deranged. Unless it was planned. Nebula knew that Gamora went with Thanos to Vormir, and he left with a stone and without her. In the 5-year jump, she has the time, and with Rocket's ship she has the ability to investigate why.
A soul for a soul.
Nothing in the film suggests that the Red Skull is going anywhere without the stones to guard. Hell, if it can be returned, then he'd probably be used to staying there when it's gone. Even with the stone destroyed, he probably needs to stay there because he knew Nebula would be coming to ask about Gamora.
It is my curse to know all who journey here.
So either the Red Skull was still there and Nebula knows for sure, or he left and she probably has suspicions about what happened. And even suspicions are more than enough for what happens next. So in mainly off-screen bits, the team works out who's being sent, where and when. Some are obvious, Cap and Hulk to New York, Thor to Asgard, but there's no reason whatsoever for Rhodey to go to Morag. It was meant to be the simplest mission, hit Quill and take the orb. So I think Nebula, as one of 2 resident space experts, made convincing sounding arguments for why it had to be Nat and Clint sent to Vormir. She could make up anything she liked, only Rocket could tell if she was full of shit. But does she work alone? I don't think so. On Morag, when she and Rhodey see Nat and Clint live in the ship, she says this.
Coordinates for Vormir are laid in. All they have to do is not fall out.
If that was anyone else, I'd assume it was a quip. Dumbass Earthers better not fall out the airlock. But Nebula doesn't joke. She's hoping they don't have an argument. But was she working alone? Was there a conspiracy? I think there was, and I will now list everyone in order of how likely I think that they were in on it.
Shut the front door.
1. Rhodey. He's definitely in on it. He's an officer, he's used to sending people to their deaths. People who don't need to know that it's going to be fatal. Rhodey wasn't involved in the group angst after Nat's death. He was probably off having a stiff drink. Hell, he's the one who suggested murdering Thanos as a baby. He's fine doing whatever is necessary. Plus, Nebula made her comment to him.
All they have to do is not fall out.
2. Rocket. He's probably involved. Nebula would need him to back up whatever random space bullshit she comes up with to explain why it has to be Nat and Clint sent to Vormir. His rant to Thor and Asgard shows he'll do what's necessary to save the people snapped.
You think you're the only one who lost people? What do you think we're doing here? I lost the only family I ever had.
If anything, the idea that Nat or Clint's life is in his conscience gives his rant extra weight.
Suck out the Infinity Stone and help me get my family back.
3. Cap. Probably less than Rocket. He's military, he believes in the sacrifice play, he knows that Nat or Clint would do it if they had to. He probably wishes it could be him sent to die for Carter or Bucky, which would help soothe his conscience a bit. And when they return to the present without Nat, Cap doesn't look confused. He looks guilty. And remember that Mjolnir is a Viking weapon. Cold pragmatism to defeat your enemy is not the sort of thing the Vikings found unworthy. It was one of their main battle strategies. Those are the 4 that I think were possibly involved. Stark could have been convinced, but they probably couldn't risk him blabbing. Thor was in no state to take part. Nebula didn't know Ant-Man and wasn't impressed by him, so he probably wasn't even considered. Banner would never go for it and would probably derail the whole thing trying to find another way. In a way, I think Nebula could have planned and arranged this alone, but for the best chance for it to work, she'd need some help. Rocket to back her up, Rhodey and or Cap to confirm who the best people to send to Vormir are, that kind of thing. And I don't think any of this is villainous, it's pragmatic. I think out of all the Time Heist people, except for Iron Man, Nebula is easily the most likely to sacrifice herself for the greater good. Because she did. If the one she cared about the most wasn't already thrown into Vormir, she'd have cast herself down there in a heartbeat.